Before the pandemic, before we moved to online, we used to have quizzes in the classroom, and then I could give you, pencil and paper quiz. Work this out, hand it in, it gets graded. We can't do that anymore. So I would like to talk about these questions, but before I do, I thought maybe you could just pause the video here and see how you do, and then we'll talk. I copied the first question onto the whiteboard here and worked through it with my colored pens. So A starts out at 5, B is 10, and then we have the assignment, A equals B. So if you remember, it's always the thing on the left-hand side that gets changed. So here B became 10, here A becomes whatever value B is. So B was 10, therefore A becomes 10 on this line. And now we go into a for loop. I put the values of I here. So the first time through, I is 0. A plus plus, A was 10, it becomes 11. I becomes 1. A plus plus, it becomes 12, etc. all the way through. The ending number would be 15. And then we have another for loop. Again, I starts out at 0. B is B plus 10. Well, what was B? B over here was 10. So B plus 10 is 20. And then I becomes 1, and B becomes 30, and I becomes 2, and B becomes 40. I becomes 3, B becomes 50. I becomes 4, B becomes 60. And now I print them all out. And the result of this output line is A colon space 15, because that's the value of A. B colon space 60, because that's the value of B. I think, let's see if we're correct, we can go to JGRASP because that's faster for programs like this. I don't mean faster to execute, I just mean faster to create. So here we have it in JGRASP. Run it, and we see A 15, B 60, which is what we thought it should be. Okay, let's go on to number 2. Well, here we have very similar code, but instead of A and B being ints, they are arrays. A is an array of length 5 containing integers 1 through 5, and B is an array of integers containing integers 6 through 10. And now we say A equals B, just as we did before. First of all, let's look at this. We said before that it's always the guy on the left that gets altered. But that doesn't mean that everything in A now is whatever is in B. When we have an assignment of arrays, what happens is that it says A is now B. A and B are now the same thing. So A and B are now exactly the same. Now when I go through this piece of code and I increment every element of A, I will in fact be making the alterations here. So this is now 7, 8, 9, 10, and 11. And now I have another for loop, I go through my B array, which is the same as my A array, and I add 10 to every element. So this now becomes 17, 18, 19. I know I could just put a 1 in front, but I want to make it obvious what I'm doing, adding 10 to every one of these. And now when I print out the value of I followed by AI and BI, this is what I expect to see. And I expect to see this because A and B are the exact same array. Let's go to JRASP and see if that's correct. Here we have the entire code. Let's run it and look at our answers. And there we go. A and B are the exact same thing. So when we use primitive variables, when A and B are not arrays, and we make the assignment as we did here, then that doesn't mean that forever after A and B are the same thing. But it does mean exactly that when we do it with an array.